Welcome to the Catalina foothills, Arizona's crown jewel where cash flows freely. Perfectly paved drives sit silent, while locals memorize every single passing ride. They track the daily runners and hired help alike. It is a flawless bubble that shatters so loudly the entire nation freezes in shock. Late January 31st into the dark morning of February 1st, 2026. Someone snatched an 84-year-old woman inside. Red traces stain the entryway stones she left behind. We know her as Nancy Guthrie. You might recognize her daughter, Savannah Guthrie, from the Today Show. Almost 8 weeks have passed, yet federal agents keep pounding on those doors. Except this current wave of interviews brings a sharp twist. Nancy is no longer the main subject. Investigators are zeroing in on a neighboring property. It sat empty for a while. Now, officials want razor-sharp details about that spot. Forget the broad inquiries. They want absolute truths. A local ex-police chief recently spilled his guts to Parade magazine. He suspects that exact residence served as a hidden command center, a dark headquarters to prep, stare through the blinds, and wait. They clocked every daily habit before February 1st rolled around. Yet, one massive puzzle piece is lost. Enter Brian Anton, a top News Nation sleuth. He has pounded the Tucson pavement longer than any rival reporter tracking this mystery. His insiders revealed that federal suits are sniffing around a former resident who packed up right before the tragedy. Word on the street implies they are hyper-focused on one guy who skipped town prior to the tragic event. Authorities are digging aggressively into his sudden departure. Then Dave Mack from Crime Stories hijacked the narrative on live television with a clashing timeline. He claimed the tenants fled right after she was taken. Pre-incident versus post-incident are massively different claims. The fact that agents are doing a targeted name-by-name sweep proves they grasp how crucial that timeline discrepancy really is. We are taking a mental tour of that shady property today. A veteran tactical leader already painted a grim picture of the activities. His breakdown of the scheme will send shivers down the spine of anyone tracking this chaotic saga. Let us vet this so-called expert before crossing the threshold. We need to know who is feeding us this intel. Bob Krieger lacks a mic or a silly web channel. The man commanded the Puma County Tactical Squad for years. That is the exact same jurisdiction where the victim resided. Decades of his life were spent leading lethal raids across this very same desert terrain. He views the Catalina foothills through a combat lens. The man breathes the tension of those winding roads at 2 in the morning. Executing a flawless hit without leaving traces is his specialty. And he has already voiced his theories publicly. During an initial chat with Parade, he analyzed the doorbell footage showing a disguised prowler. He studied the handgear, the tool, the midnight shadows, and delivered a stark verdict. He bluntly stated, "This felt incredibly deliberate. Someone zeroed in on this exact address." Then he doubled down. The sheer amount of prep work screams malicious intent from miles away. It does not automatically make the guy a criminal mastermind. But he stuck to a script and vanished into total silence. Scripted the hit, then became a ghost. That summed up his profile. Calculated and brutal. Fast forward to a March 19th piece where he shifts focus from the attacker's mindset to his physical hideout. The narrative evolved way past a simple blueprint. He points directly to the suspected plotting ground. Make no mistake, that shift is huge. Imagine a grizzled precinct veteran with hometown advantage warning a massive media outlet. He warned them that a nearby real estate lot operated as a villainous sanctuary. Forget clickbait theories. This relies on raw intuition from a guy who hunts predators for a living. Parade purposefully hunted him down for his crucial take. Right after Anton exposed the feds snooping around the empty lot, proving cops are sweating over this newly unearthed thread, they bypassed all the generic talking heads. Journalists tapped the ultimate desert warfare authority to decode the madness. His response highlighted a bizarre phase we are currently navigating. 7 agonizing weeks have drained away. Mainstream cameras have chased fresh blood. Viral sleuths from February have packed it up, but a dark undercurrent still remains. Federal agents keep hammering on doors, digging for fresh answers, and aggressively sweeping through a community they previously mapped out. Such relentless drive speaks volumes, since massive government operations never sustain this intense momentum over completely empty, useless leads. Authorities keep pushing forward because hidden details remain unfound. and that empty residence clearly demands much deeper, more aggressive scrutiny. Anyone who has ever called the Catalina foothills home, catching Brian Enton discussing federal inquiries into a local lease, immediately grasps the dark, chilling implication behind those exact probes. Leased homes naturally scream out as glaring oddities within tight communities where unfamiliar faces immediately raise suspicion. Furthermore, an oddity suddenly vacating right around a brutal abduction clearly stands out as no mere accident to ignore. Investigators are fiercely yanking on this glaring loose string, while the expert perfectly breaks down their current, highly targeted angle, the launchpad hypothesis. We absolutely must carefully dissect his March 19th parade discussion, since his precise phrasing holds massive weight here, and losing any factual accuracy through sloppy summaries remains a huge mistake. Detectives might view an abandoned dwelling as a primary headquarters or covert prep zone for whoever actually orchestrated this nightmare. Headquarters and prep zones are never random guesses, but rather highly technical tactical terms. Masterminds plotting complex illegal schemes use exactly this kind of language regarding the necessary logistical frameworks required for their success. Launchpads serve as safe spots to stash gear, critically review scouting trips, and hide out completely unnoticed by any locals who might otherwise panic. Occupying an adjacent leased unit provides a perfectly bulletproof excuse for lingering around the area at bizarre, highly unusual hours. A plausible disguise, not an alibi, makes this distinction entirely crucial to grasp. Alibis protect you once the dust settles, whereas a solid disguise excuses your lurking before any real chaos even strikes. A prowler could loiter on the pavement, idle in their vehicle past midnight, and hold a bulletproof excuse ready if an overly curious resident suddenly decides to approach and interrogate. They merely claim to live next door. Nobody dials 911 before the expert dropped a heavier tactical bombshell. Lurking securely inside a deserted adjacent building grants the perfect shadows for quietly watching local routines, meticulously mapping out neighborhood traffic, and closely tracking everyone's daily movements, with an incredibly heavy focus on Nancy. Tracking every single movement and daily habit of residents, especially Nancy. The man is perfectly outlining advanced tactical reconnaissance. Every high-level kidnapping features this dark phase, since nobody just rolls up in the black of night winging it. Attackers watch relentlessly to memorize schedules, mapping out exactly when their prey remains hopelessly isolated, deeply vulnerable, and entirely easy to locate. Criminals chart every blind spot. Then he dropped what I consider the absolute heaviest bombshell insight any seasoned professional has offered publicly since federal authorities finally unveiled that shocking doorbell camera footage. He informed the publication that an empty residence, stating, quote, "hidden perfectly away from nosy locals, serves as a prime nest for planting highly invasive spying gear if the perpetrators desired. High-tech gadgets could effortlessly remain tucked inside the walls without a single soul ever catching on to the horrifying reality. Forget about some desperate creep peeking through blinds with field glasses, because we are facing the horrifying reality of actual hardwired setups here. Hidden optics, listening bugs, or proximity alarms. Tech that monitors the victim's house endlessly without needing an actual person present, streaming entirely invisible feeds directly to a remote screen. Gadgets humming along perfectly while the house looks completely deserted to passing walkers. A nightmare the feds fully recognize as entirely viable. Experienced professionals know this terrifying reality holds true. Federal operatives circling back to grill locals about that exact building proves they are treating this massive threat with extreme, undeniable gravity. Thorough breakdowns demand we flip the coin completely. So imagine if this empty house holds absolutely zero connection to the horrific crime. Perhaps the departing tenants just moved away for entirely normal reasons, right at a tragically unlucky, purely coincidental moment. Under those precise circumstances, agents must definitively clear the lead, which naturally demands aggressive, boots-on-the-ground neighborhood interrogations. Detectives must collect enough solid timelines regarding past occupants to comfortably declare the spot completely irrelevant to the horrific nightmare that unfolded. Yet, the glaring reality that they keep poking around, rather than packing up, tossing the theory entirely, shows a glaring lack of closure, which acts as a massive red flag all by itself. The massive power of 50 feet requires deep geographical mapping, because this wild hypothesis only clicks when visualizing the actual terrain layout. These gorgeous foothills rest right against the bottom edges of the massive Santa Catalina Range, sitting slightly above Tucson. Massive luxury estates push their giant structures far away from the pavement. After dark, these massive streets transform into a desolate ghost town. Sidewalks barely exist out here. Zero shops exist to draw random tourists into this secluded area. Public transit and footways vanish completely, leaving absolutely no excuse for outsiders to linger. This means strangers immediately stick out inside the Catalina foothills. The locals aren't hostile. They just share a deeply tight-knit bond. Everyone recognizes their neighbors' daily rides and hired contractors, from yard crews to pet sitters. The community spots intruders instantly because this layout naturally repels wandering souls. Leasing a house completely destroys that reliable safety net. Leased homes naturally invite constant drifters. Temporary guests pack up, vanish, and constantly swap identities. Expecting neighborhood locals to memorize every single passing tenant becomes completely impossible. Should a vicious predator use one of these spots strictly for surveillance rather than sleeping, they secure an absolutely bulletproof disguise, sitting roughly 50 feet back, which represents the bare minimum gap separating these sprawling local estates. A watcher could easily map out a victim's life over several weeks. Pinpointing the exact moment those master suite lamps flick out becomes effortless. Every sunrise habit and late-night ritual gets laid bare. Figuring out whether they slip through the main foyer or the vehicle bay takes mere days. An observer notes exactly when the sedan rolls onto the pavement and when it vanishes. Logging the precise seconds it takes for that automatic gate to shut behind her vehicle becomes terrifyingly simple. Spying out blind spots in the security system is a breeze. It barely takes any effort confirming if she sleeps solo or entertains late-night guests. Looking at the confirmed logs from Nancy's last free night, she grabbed a rideshare, heading to a relative's meal at 5:32 p.m. on January 31st. Her driver brought her back safely by 9:48. By 9:50 p.m., 2 minutes later, her electronic gate sealed shut, proving she was indoors safely. At exactly 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, the front porch lens mysteriously died. The feed completely died. Had a stalker been eyeing her residence from an adjacent lot for any lengthy stretch before that fateful evening, they undoubtedly recognized the gap between 9:48 and 1:47 as their prime striking time. That gave them roughly 4 hours with a solo target, pitch black streets, and absolutely no sleepover guests. Plus, a front entry lens that any properly trained scout would have already figured out how to bypass. The shadowed figure caught on tape arrived incredibly equipped, wearing a balaclava, hand coverings, heavy outerwear, full trousers, and packing a hip-mounted firearm, alongside a 25-liter tactical trail rucksack. This gear screams calculated malice rather than some random crime of passion. The man brought professional equipment. We are looking at a hyper-focused mission scheduled for one precise evening. Federal agents classify the Phantom as an average-sized male, standing roughly 5'9" to 10. Months later, authorities still lack names, handcuffs, or viable persons of interest. Retired Bureau operative Jennifer Coffindaffer, who remains a highly decorated and leading analytical mind tackling this horrific mystery, confidently stated the stalker actually approached Nancy's porch on January 11th. That terrifying dry run happened exactly 3 weeks prior to the actual kidnapping. Addressing the media, the grieving Guthrie relatives recently pleaded publicly. They begged locals to dig deep into their minds regarding January 11th and January 24th, demanding focus on those exact days rather than broad timelines. Begging the public to hyperfixate on January 11th matches up perfectly with the expert profiler's published theories. We are discussing 21 days of active stalking beforehand. Military combat veteran Kurt Dabb openly shared with Parade magazine that he suspects anywhere from 2 to 4 partners helped pull this off. He backed this up by stating, "Managing a plot this massive simply overwhelms a single operator." Based on current evidence, he considers a lone wolf theory professionally absurd. He further insisted that the perpetrators absolutely scouted the property beforehand, meaning the mastermind or his lackeys spent serious time watching her. Scouting ahead uses military intelligence phrasing. Everyone is applying that exact same operational framework. True crime host and Jacksonville State forensics expert Joseph Scott Morgan told audiences that the monster responsible thoroughly stalked the perimeter. The assailants knew these hidden roads perfectly. They mapped out the vibe long before making a move. He noted that spotting the security tech was merely the final piece of their tactical puzzle. That hardcore combat terminology now defines the tragic fate of an 84-year-old grandmother living peacefully in Tucson, Arizona. Literally, every single tactical authority reviewing the kidnapping evidence reaches the exact same terrifying conclusion. Someone watched her. This attack was meticulously scripted. Executing such a flawless strike demands a physical headquarters to hide out in between scouting trips. Consequently, federal agents are finally aggressively investigating the empty house next door. Now let me hit the brakes for a second to weave one final chilling detail into this tactical nightmare. Confirmed reports indicate that on the exact evening Nancy vanished, several surrounding homeowners mysteriously lost their video feeds. Detectives suddenly started grilling locals regarding bizarre internet blackouts hitting the block during that exact window. Crucial porch video vanished entirely. Nancy's personal entrance lens mysteriously dropped offline at exactly 1:47 early morning. We aren't dealing with random misfortune here. This was meticulously planned. Any sophisticated stalker watching the block for weeks, carefully mapping out specific network feeds, could easily orchestrate these exact digital blind spots from 50 feet out, leveraging ample time and clear access to decode everything entirely through that builder angle. Before diving into the massive scheduling discrepancies, and we will certainly address that, another crucial angle to this community drama exists, which mainstream outlets either completely buried or just missed. Federal agents are currently probing the local builders. They bypass the empty estate to focus on builders, taking a highly targeted approach. Enton reported investigators demanding, and let me stress his exact phrasing here, extremely precise details. Exactly. Demanding the exact identities of every single tradesman active on community renovation sites. Rejecting broad corporate titles entirely. They ignored the master corporate agreements, insisting on personal records for everyone involved, especially since multiple estates are currently being built throughout the Catalina foothills area today. Reporter Brian Enton personally witnessed these active building zones while cruising the district, highlighting this builder angle as a fascinating, genuinely fresh clue. Considering the extreme precision of the federal demands, one local homeowner informed News Nation about her companion, who owns a nearby property currently undergoing renovations, getting cornered by investigators demanding a complete roster detailing every tradesman or laborer who set foot inside her boundary. No partial lists allowed, absolutely everyone. But why does this actually impact our empty residence mystery? It matters because laborers and temporary tenants next door both possess a crucial strategic advantage. Either group holds perfectly normal, unquestioned daily entry into an exclusive, tightly knit community, usually hostile to unfamiliar faces. A heavy truck arriving at 7 in the morning goes completely unnoticed, just like crews grabbing lunch outside or tradesmen pacing the boundaries. Such activities fade perfectly into the local background without sparking the high alert an unfamiliar pedestrian inevitably causes. Building teams notice everything, carefully tracking exactly who receives packages and the exact timing. They easily spot the early birds versus late sleepers, while mapping out street-facing entrances compared to hidden backways. These laborers often occupy the exact same block for consecutive weeks or months. Anyone needing a solid disguise to continuously spy on a targeted house without sparking suspicion would find a neighboring repair job to be the perfect camouflage. Federal agents demanding the full roster of these teams isn't a random guess. It represents a highly targeted dragnet. Retired federal investigator Steve Moore joined Enton's broadcast, providing sharp insight into exactly what this intense scrutiny truly signifies. Clearly, investigators are backtracking, but he quickly provided an essential distinction that every reporter on this beat must fully grasp. Doubling back doesn't mean losing ground. It actually proves the entire investigation is advancing. This suggests incoming data a fresh clue, a suddenly unlocked memory, or an unknown suspect justified returning to verify against their established evidence board. Look, it clearly signals that detectives are actively doubling back. Listen, we have discussed this comparison previously. Imagine misplacing your vehicle's ignition fob. You immediately wander around your home or flat, checking all your typical drop spots, only to find them completely missing. After that, you are forced to pivot, mentally rewinding your path to ask yourself about yesterday's trousers or the location of your handbag. A vital detail suddenly emerged. Detectives pivoted, running the builder angle simultaneously alongside the empty estate theory, knowing whoever stalked Nancy's residence leading up to February 1st required a solid excuse for loitering there. An adjacent short-term lease or a nearby renovation gig easily provides the absolute perfect alibi. Huge scheduling clashes. We must break down this discrepancy, as rival outlets are completely botching the puzzle, ignoring how deeply critical this detail truly is. 3 separate individuals spoke publicly regarding the exact departure date of those temporary tenants. Yet their testimonies clash entirely. Let's check the first. News Nation's top-tier investigative sleuth, Brian Anton, remains our most plugged-in correspondent here, having camped out in Tucson for weeks to verify facts via contacts closely tied to police forces. During the March 17th broadcast of his personal online program, Anton Investigations, the host revealed to his audience, one specific resident relocated right before Nancy vanished, prompting detectives to dig much deeper into that exact scenario. While not definitively linked to the main tragedy, federal investigators are undeniably focusing heavy attention on that particular angle, exiting beforehand his exact phrasing, reliable sources, and total certainty confirmed an early departure. Let's kick things off with a massive bombshell. Dave Mack from Crime Stories with Nancy Grace went live and completely shifted the narrative, stating, "Right next door, those renters vanished the exact second Nancy Guthrie went missing. Make whatever you want out of that shocking detail. The reality is they stayed right up until the abduction happened and then vanished. Present before the crime, instantly missing afterward." That represents a 180-degree flip from Anton's report. We are absolutely not dealing with reporters discussing separate houses. Both are looking at the exact same neighborhood lease, yet they are spinning wildly, contradicting narratives regarding when the tenants bolted. Our third witness, a local named Laura, spoke face-to-face with Brian Anton on tape about details she saw firsthand. Laura explained on camera, "We hardly have any leased homes around here, but there is one leased spot close by, and those tenants packed up just days around the tragedy." She then dropped a crucial detail. She believed they skipped town earlier simply because their vehicle completely disappeared. This testimony stands out because she seems to be connecting the dots backward based entirely on that missing ride. She realized the vehicle vanished during a time frame that she strongly associated with the precise window of the kidnapping itself. Whether that specific vehicle disappeared prior to or after February 1st, she cannot state definitively, but it felt incredibly sketchy, prompting her to phone the authorities immediately. She recalled, "I figured it was likely nothing serious. Yet, I decided to ring them up to report that former occupants were suddenly gone." And she definitely phoned it in. In a tight-knit community like this, a suddenly missing car without any moving vans, farewells, or formal heads-up felt incredibly strange. It came across as deeply weird rather than outright criminal. It felt odd in the exact same manner that any minor disruption bothers a perfectly quiet suburb. Listen closely, because you need to grasp exactly why this massive clash in timelines changes the entire investigation strategy. What if Anton actually got it right and those tenants cleared out earlier? If true, we are analyzing a house that sat entirely empty during the crucial planning phases right before the kidnapping. It means the spot was deserted between January 11th and February 1st. During those empty days, nobody was around to spot or formally report weird behavior. There was absolutely nobody around to track the quiet movements. Without regular tenants, no one could catch an unwanted lurker. An empty house during that specific time frame serves as an absolute goldmine for a predator needing invisible street access. But what if Mac is actually correct? Assuming the occupants fled right after the abduction occurred, the entire scenario shifts into a completely different mystery. Folks abandoning a lease in their own neighborhood without warning right after a massive local kidnapping look less like ordinary movers and much more like they are destroying evidence. This is not relocating, this is erasure. It is the type of rapid, spotless exit people pull off when staying in a spot becomes far too dangerous. The feds are clearly taking both theories to heart, especially since Anton revealed they are heavily interrogating locals about that specific house. That phrasing does not scream case closed. It sounds like an extremely active, open wound. Then comes Aldine Meister, a resident of the Catalina foothills for decades. She chatted with Brian Anton repeatedly throughout the initial stages of this massive manhunt. Unprompted, she brought up that empty house entirely on her own just days after Nancy originally vanished into thin air. She informed Anton directly. The folks living right next door just vanished, so I really needed the cops to investigate that property. She called it out during week 1. 6 weeks down the line, the feds are finally digging into the exact clues she pointed out initially. Meister additionally warned both detectives and journalists about spotting a highly suspicious guy lurking around the block weeks prior to the tragedy. His face remained completely hidden beneath his cap. He totally gave off the wrong vibe. He briefly materialized and then vanished completely. Roughly 2 weeks prior to the incident, he was just hovering around out there. Peeking through my large bathroom window where I watched the morning walkers, I instantly spotted this incredibly creepy dude hiding beneath a cap pulled down really low. He slouched heavily as he walked. Instead of typical morning workout clothes or hiking gear, he wore completely normal everyday street outfits. That immediately struck me as super sketchy and out of place. This is exactly how Aldine Meister described the chilling encounter. He was a glaring outsider wandering through a community where literally everyone else blends in perfectly. If this absolute creep was actively using that empty lease, running a practice drill on January 11th from a hideout exactly 50 feet from Nancy's front porch, then Aldine Meister actually caught the predator red-handed. And now, a full 6 weeks later, the feds are actively hunting for answers. Pressing on that specific lease and pinpointing January 11th and January 24th proves they are finally following Meister's day one advice. The agency remains dead silent. Let me be brutally clear about our blind spots right now, because factual precision completely separates true investigative journalism from cheap gossip. As of this exact moment, we lack any verified proof that federal agents actually breached and thoroughly swept the inside of that deserted home. Let's get straight to the facts. Federal agents are heavily interrogating folks about that exact building while sweeping the surrounding streets. We also know this. The public remarks from Krieger deliberately hinted that hidden recording gear might be stashed within those walls. What's totally clear is that this federal probe remains aggressively active, highly targeted, and zeroed in on the exact layout of that street, a massive shift from their broad initial sweep during week 1. After Newsweek reached out to the Phoenix Federal Field Office to discuss the rumors surrounding the empty lot and the local building crews, officials eventually provided a formal written reply. The formal response noted that they typically do not engage with any independent media coverage. Furthermore, standard department rules prevent them from discussing open cases. That means absolutely nothing. It's essentially a giant wall of red tape. Yet, in a high-stakes investigation like this, where detectives have willingly shared front porch video clips with the public, openly verified bloody crime scene details, admitted to finding genetic material, and officially labeled the whole ordeal a premeditated abduction, their calculated decision to suddenly stay quiet about one particular location speaks volumes on its own. The agents aren't claiming the site was checked out and deemed clean. They definitely aren't saying it was a complete dead end. They're giving us pure radio silence. And that exact lack of words is totally intentional. When Parade magazine pressed Krieger on why the empty lot suddenly became a hotspot after 6 weeks, he tackled it head-on, calling it routine follow-up. The detectives are simply tracking down every single clue and lead that crosses their desks. Shockingly enough, fresh and credible clues surface constantly. A local neighbor might witness or overhear a tiny detail that suddenly triggers a long-forgotten memory they initially brushed off as absolutely nothing. A hidden detail surfaced. That remains the underlying theme behind every major twist during the past 2 explosive weeks of this manhunt, returning to the neighborhood. The intense questioning regarding the empty lot, the individual builder interviews, and that sudden fixation on January 11th and January 24th, a fresh clue clearly sparked a secondary sweep. And federal reviews of this massive scale don't just happen merely to double-check boxes. They only happen when someone drops a completely fresh lead. An early piece of evidence from the start of this case is also taking on a much heavier meaning given everything we just discussed. Several locals confirmed to News Nation that private surveillance videos from the evening of February 1st had miraculously vanished or were completely inaccessible. Detectives allegedly grilled residents about any bizarre network drops or internet issues happening on the block during that window. Erased videos, massive network outages, and a porch cam dying at 1:47 overnight. These clearly aren't random glitches. They point directly to a prowler who spent weeks studying the area, learning exactly which security networks to disable before making a move. Bob Craig noted that this crime reveals an attacker who fundamentally had a solid blueprint, who scoped things out, practiced, and managed to stay incredibly low-key afterward. The federal team refusing to share what they uncovered at that empty lot perfectly mirrors that exact same calculated silence. They refuse to reveal their hand. But the specific nature of their interrogations actually gives away a ton of detail. The agency remains totally silent. Here is what we still genuinely lack. I need to be brutally exact here. Since factual accuracy is the only thing separating real journalism from wild gossip, we lack any hard proof that government investigators ever executed a full-scale sweep inside the actual walls of that deserted building. The rock-solid fact remains that authorities are aggressively grilling locals about that address and continually scanning the nearby streets. We've also verified that Creer publicly floated the chilling theory of spy cameras being secretly hidden deep within the framework. We can guarantee that this federal investigation is highly aggressive, incredibly focused, and strictly locked onto the geographic layout of that avenue, a completely different approach compared to their blind door-knocking back in week 1. Once Newsweek pushed the local Phoenix federal branch to address the swirling rumors about the deserted plot and those construction teams, they were handed a drafted reply. The written memo stated that they generally avoid responding to unverified media narratives. Also, strict agency protocol stops them from commenting on active cases. That tells us absolutely zero. It's essentially a giant wall of government red tape. Yet, in a massive manhunt like this, where agents previously leaked front porch security clips, openly validated bloody crime scenes, verified genetic markers left behind, and branded the crime a precise abduction, their sudden refusal to discuss one location is a glaring message. The team completely refuses to claim the building was searched and totally ruled out. They certainly never claimed it was a complete dead end. They're offering pure silence. And that exact quietness is a highly strategic move. Parade magazine pressed Krieger on why that empty house suddenly became a hotbed of scrutiny after 6 long weeks. He tackled the question head-on, brushing it off as standard legwork, while agents continue chasing down the relentless stream of incoming tips. Surprisingly enough, fresh and highly credible clues surface constantly. A random sight or sound might suddenly jog a neighbor's memory about a detail they completely dismissed back then, sparking a major breakthrough. That exact dynamic drives every single twist over the past 2 weeks, especially the agents swarming the block once again. They are grilling people relentlessly about that empty residence. Detectives are interviewing builders individually, zeroing in on January 11th and January 24th, because something sparked a fresh review. Let me be clear, federal agents handling massive cases like this never double back just to be thorough. This story is not just about fear, it is about awareness, responsibility, and the power of attention. It reveals how even the safest, most peaceful communities can be quietly studied, mapped, and exploited by someone patient enough to observe every detail. The most important lesson here is that safety is never something we can take for granted. Routine can become vulnerability. The more predictable our lives are, the easier it becomes for the wrong person to understand and misuse that pattern. Protecting ourselves means being mindful of what we share, how we live, and what feels out of place. It also teaches us to trust our instincts. A strange figure, an unfamiliar car, or something that simply feels off should never be ignored. Small observations can become life-saving clues. What seems insignificant in the moment may hold the key to preventing something far worse. Equally powerful is the role of community. When people speak up, report concerns, and look out for one another, they create a shield stronger than any security system. Silence, on the other hand, gives danger room to grow. In the end, this is a call to stay alert, stay connected, and never underestimate the importance of paying attention, because awareness can protect and action can save lives.